Hey, everybody, welcome back to Dad Talk Today. I got a friend of mine that I met several years ago, and since then I have just grown to respect so much, and I'm glad I get to get him back on the show, Mr. Trunnis Goggins, and that's Junior. Uh, One thing after that first interview I did with you, Trunnis, I was surprised to see how many people thought you were your father.
Yeah, I had after that interview, it's funny, and I hope I don't look that old, okay? Because no, I'm serious, I really don't. Someone actually sent something to me on Facebook right after that interview and literally threatened my life
Hmm.
because of what I did. I said I didn't do it. And then after I talked to him, I'm like, dude, that wasn't me. But yeah, I am Trunnis Goggins II, absolutely. Um, but yeah, that was a great interview, and you are a dear friend of mine for sure.
Threaten your life, man. That is so crazy that it would even get to that point. Um, and this is somebody that has no idea who you were and thought you was somebody else.
Thought I was the other person, absolutely. And I mean, I get that a lot. Um, um, because again, we have the similar name. A matter of fact, on Facebook, I used to just put Trunnis Goggins because my dad did not have a Facebook thing, and
Facebook.
now it does actually have Trunnis Goggins II. And everything I do now, I always put the room. I put my legal name, Trunnis Goggins II, on from now on. Yeah,
Well, so many people know your brother David's story, and you
absolutely.
guys got two different takes. You had different experiences, and for anybody that would like to go see that interview, check it out. When was that? That's about 3 years ago now, ain't it?
It was in 20. Was it 22, 23? It's 22. It was 22. Yeah, this is 25
Wow.
now. Wow, it's going. Man,
Yeah,
life
man.
speeds by.
Definitely is. But I mean, so today we're wanting to get up about a very important topic that I don't think gets talked about enough. You got a new book coming out.
I
Uh,
do.
Tell us about the name of the book and what inspired you to write it.
The book is called Stories of Veteran from Military to Civilian Life. What inspired me to do this? Like my brother, I was in the United States Navy. I had a great time in the Navy. Um, After I got out, now I'm going to tell you what the Navy did for me. The Navy, by the time I got out of the Navy, I already had my master's degree, thanks to Uncle Sam. All right, through, and I'm going to tell you, there are so many benefits that the United States military has to offer that when you get out, you should have a home, you should have a college degree, you should be well on your way. There should be no such thing as a homeless vet. Now, is the that's the dream, and that is the ultimate goal. But unfortunately, there are problems when you get out of the military. Even when I got out with a college degree, I got out with a job already, I got out with all these good things, but yet when I got out, psychologically I was not ready to leave the United States military. And you see all the
Maybe
time.
go in detail about that a little bit more because I was telling you earlier before we got on. I got invited to a veterans meeting not long ago because I got so many men that watch my show. I wanted to know what it is that they're going through, and I realized I thought I had an idea, but I had no idea what you guys go through when you get out the military. I mean,
Right.
it's definitely a process.
It is a process. First thing that I have to say is that everyone that I served with in the Navy was my family. When you went to work, it was an extension of your family. It really was an extension. Those were, when they say brothers and sisters in arms, they literally mean brothers and sisters in arms because that's who they are. I mean, we used to go. I have friends, and I'm gonna drop their names because I know they're gonna listen to it. Dave Waddle, Russ Jensen, Chris Smith, all of these individuals who are dear friends of mine, even to this day. Okay. We would hang out after work. They knew my kids. I knew their kids. They knew my spouse. I knew their spouse. We were there to help each other. We were there just all the time. We were literally family. You come out of the military. This is the first thing. Now you have coworkers. In the civilian world, you do have coworkers. You leave, and this, I'm like this too. You leave your people. You don't want to see these people after 5 o'clock. If you work from 8 to 5, there's a very good chance. There's an 80% chance that everybody that maybe there's one person that is your coworker that you're still friends with that you worked with 20 years ago. Okay, that is not the case in the military. You are family. You eat together. You sleep together. You do all of these different things together. There is a sense of unity. You know that person and the people I talked about were when I was in recruiting. You know that person sitting at the desk down the hall from you would take a bullet for you if they had to. You know that for a fact, and you know that you would take a bullet for them. When you get out into the civilian world, you know that those times are gone. That camaraderie, that sense of belonging is gone. The other thing in the military, you're a hero. Okay? You're automatically a hero. I'm going to tell a story, and I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way, but the reason why I tell the story because I think it's the funniest story in the world. And excuse me, because I have to use a bad word in here. I was in a part of Indiana when I was a recruiter, and I was in my uniform, and I was trying to recruit this kid, and we had to get some medical documents or something like that. And when we were getting these documents, we went to McDonald's because I was hungry, and I said, "You want something to eat?" And he's like, "Yeah." So we go to get something to eat. So we go to this town, and this town in central Indiana is not known to be very favorable for people of my complexion. Okay, it is really, and you name this town. I'm not going to name it in here, but if you name this town in Indiana, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Matter of fact, people in Indiana are probably saying the town's name right now under their breath, right now. Okay. But I'm in there and there's an older gentleman behind me and I'm in my uniform. Okay. Full uniform. Guy tapped me on the shoulder and he said, and this is what he said. He said, "If you were not in that uniform, I would tell you to get your black ass out of this town." That's exactly what he said. But he said, "But instead, I'm buying your lunch." I said, "Well, I got to buy his lunch too." He goes, "I'm going to buy his lunch too." I said, "In that case, buy his lunch and buy my lunch and make it supersized." And that's exactly what I did because we were at McDonald's and he bought me a supersize. I laughed about it. The kid that I was with was very uncomfortable. I wasn't uncomfortable about it at all. But at that point, the military transcends race, creed, religion, you name it. It transcends that. I was no longer a human being. And that's anybody in the military. You are something special. You have something that no one else has. And you know what you have to do every day. When you go in the civilian world, those days are gone. Now
you feel like that meaning of life is no longer there.
That meaning of life is no longer there. It took a long time for me to regain that meaning. And I found it in education as a college professor. My brother found it as a motivational speaker. He was lost too when he got out. And it's in the book that I have, Stories of Veterans, are stories of veterans. Most of them are from the Gulf War era. We have one from more modern times two from more modern times that got out. And all of us have, even though we got out at different times, 90s, 2000s, and now even the 2020s, when we got out, there were, even though it was different eras, there is a common theme, and that is the feeling of loss and the feeling of lost. Okay? Two feelings. You're lost and you are in there, and your mission is lost as well.
Man, I mean, how long did it take you after getting out to really realize a lot of what you're talking about right now and start, getting a little relief from it? Okay, here's this. I'm going to get over here. I'm going to do this, get an education, or what brought that meaning back to you?
Well, wow, that's a good. Well, I will say the what brought my meaning. So I got out in 2008. I did not feel like I had something else to do until 2010. So it was actually 2 years. It was actually, I will tell you, it was June 10th, 2010 when I finally got that meaning back, I got a job finally as a because I was trying to find a job as a full-time college professor. Finally got that opportunity with Western Governors University, and then I was doing something and helping other people. I was back doing a mission. I was back making sure that my country and my countrymen were educated and were able to go on and take something. And that's when I finally felt it. I felt like I had a place again, but it took 2 years, and I was fumbling for quite a while.
Now, were you married while you were in the service?
I was. Mm-hmm.
What was that like coming back home? I mean, that's a process too,
I'm going to say this. There's a lot of marriages. Okay, so in the military, there's a couple things. You get it, and this is a running joke, but unfortunately, we joke when we, a lot of humor is rested in truth.
Yeah.
3 things you get in the military. You get a DD when you leave the military. You get a DD 214. Okay, you get a divorce decree, and you get a bankruptcy discharge. Okay. Those are 3 things that you are issued when you get out of the military. I will say that my marriage, when I got out, I was married when I was in. My marriage suffered a little bit when I got out. I'm divorced from that individual now, but it wasn't because of the military, so to speak. But there's a lot. It was different because I didn't know who I was, and I do know that there was a lot of tension in the house because I didn't know who I was. And then the other thing. The spouse, the role of the spouse changes. A lot of times in the military, the spouse and the military, the service member, they're not together 24/7 or every day like the regular civilian married couple. All right, civilian married couple. What happens with them is you work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever. You come home, you guys have dinner. You guys talk for a couple hours, then you're done. You guys talk about the day. In the military, there are a lot of jobs where you see each other from maybe September to December, and then from January to May, you don't see each other. Then you guys see each other again from June until August. Then you guys won't see each other again from September to December, and so on and so forth. So you really, when you guys get back together, you guys are back in that dating thing again. You guys are not really knowing, you don't know who that person is because you don't see that person all the time. But when you come home and you get to know who that person is, sometimes either that's like super fantastic, or sometimes like, what the hell did I just do? It can go either way, and that's where the divorce comes in. The other thing that happens is, finances. A lot of people think that, okay, if I make $70,000 a year, because that's what I was making in the military, I'll be good to go. And that is a fallacy, because that's not the truth at all. A lot of times, if you make $70,000 a year in the military, good chance only 40% of that's taxed, or 40,000 of that's taxed. So you're drawing your budget on $72,000 a year, and when you come out, you're taking a massive pay cut. That $72,000 in civilian pay is not $72,000 in military pay, and that leads to divorce. Okay, and remember I told you about the bankruptcy degree, that also, or bankruptcy, discharge. That also leads to financial problems, which actually leads to, in many cases. In many cases, it will lead to bad credit and ultimately bankruptcy of some sort.
Yeah, man. I mean, I could imagine being gone for months, sometimes years at a time, and coming home. And I think you put it perfectly. I've never heard anybody put it that way, but it's like you're dating your spouse again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the same thing with, your kids. They've grown in that time. What do they like now? What's their likes? What's their dislikes? What's going on in their life? I put like a divorced parent is very similar when you're getting them every other week. There's a lot that happens in that time when they're gone. And every time you're seeing them, you're having to relearn, some stuff about them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just sad. So something else I wanted to ask you about. I've heard other people talk about this. When you're in the military, you've got a role that you're playing. You know what you're doing from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And now in today's age, you have this access to all this different information. Just in the last month, got a new president. There's news headlines going left and right. You're not really taking any of that in when you're overseas.
Right.
What's that like when you get out and you've got all of this information being gave to you that you've basically not been paying attention to?
It's not even all this information as much as it is all these choices. So in the military, you have the plan of the week. In the plan of the week, it has the uniform of the day. Okay, this is what you can wear. You can wear this uniform or greater to work today. Okay, they tell you. When you get out of the military, you know what? The first thing you have to do when you go to work in the civilian world, the first thing you have to decide. You have to decide what to wear, and that is when it really got me. I was a recruiter. I get out. I always wore. I had 3 uniforms that I kept. I would wash them and alternate them, and I knew those 3 uniforms. That's what I was going to wear. I knew I was going to wear my Johnny Cashes, which are now I'm showing my age because Johnny Cashes are no longer issued anymore, but I still have them hanging up in my closet, to be honest with you. And then we also had your milkman, again, another one that was the white uniform with the short sleeve. They called them the milkman uniform. You knew that was your daily work uniform. Then you had your dress, you had your Cracker Jack, and then you had your summer whites, right? I knew that those are the uniforms I was going to wear every day. Okay, that's the uniform I wore to work every day. When I got my first job outside the military, I opened up my closet, which I did have clothes, and it really hit me that now I have more choices and I'm overwhelmed by that. And those choices I was like, what am I going to wear? And it hit me that I'm no longer under that anymore. I have choices. You also, you do have a wealth of information. You do have to make decisions. I know that when I got out of the military, I got out in 2008. And this is when Obama was running for president and all that other good stuff. And it was a time when the political landscape and people wanted people to run for office. And when I got out of the military, I was actually approached by one of the political parties in Indiana to run. I will never run for any political office. I will say that right now. Number one, everybody says Trump has a mouth. So do I. And I think shoot, I like, so yeah, I'll say stuff that's on my mind. I can't be a politician. I'm too unfiltered. But yeah, but I was approached for that. And so I for the first time ever, I could actually run for a political office. And it's weird that you have this information. You could say certain things. When you're in the military, people don't realize that a lot of the rights that civilians have, as far as like freedom of expression, freedom of speech, those are gone.
Yeah.
Now you get those. You get to say whatever you want, how you want. You are now deciphering things. You are now affected differently. And that is weird. The other thing that when they talk about, conflict in the world, military people look at conflict a lot different than civilians. And when we see information and when we look at things in a different light. We look at things like, like what's going on in Syria and stuff like that. It's not really a black and white issue. We know that there's a bad side and we know there's a good side. But we also know that just going in somewhere and taking them out may not be the best choice. And so sometimes when you hear somebody, especially people, I was never in combat, but people who were in combat, they may approach different things. They may approach world events and stuff like that a lot different than a civilian would.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things the guys was telling me about that I would not have thought about is, you're overseas, you're doing all these missions. That meaning of life is there. You're playing that role. And a lot of them are telling me they get back home and they can't get hired anywhere. Mm-hmm. Like none of anything that they did when they was in the military is carrying over in experience. And that played into that depression. Is that really a big issue with a lot of our guys when they get out?
Actually, I'm going to say this, and this is what really hurts me about the transition from military to civilian life. A lot of the work that they do overseas absolutely transfers over to civilian life. The problem is the military does a poor job in helping that service member in understanding how that transition can be done. Okay. For example, if you are in the combat, if you are out in combat, you are probably a logistical genius. Okay. You are a strategic manager. Okay. I'm thinking about all these different things you have to do. You can do inventory all day long. You could do security. There are which is like right now, cybersecurity and things like that. Right now, there are criminals out there all day long, every day, thinking of how they can rip you off. Every combat person, because of our thought process, or I shouldn't say combat person, every military member, because of our thought process, okay, we know how to think. We know how to think in a strategic way to help other people. So here's what gets me about that, and this is I mean, yes, you may think that, and I'm not saying this to say that they're wrong in thinking that. You may think that your skills do not transfer over. What you need to do is you need to go to the right person and make sure that that it's written up so your skills can transfer over. And in my book, I actually have in the back of the book, we actually have military staffers and recruiters that help you in rewriting your resume and setting it up so you know what to say and what to do, how to allocate. For example, there are people right now, there are 18, 19-year-old kids right now that are running inventories of millions and millions of dollars, more so than Jeff Bezos. Okay. They're running inventory right now that is worth billions of dollars at any given time. And they're in charge of making sure that it is allocated appropriately. These are kids, literally they're kids. I'm old enough to be their dad. Okay. And they are running billion-dollar inventories right now as we speak. And you can't tell me that they can't sit there and run a distribution warehouse for Amazon. They should be running that place right now because they're doing something more important right now than that manager who's probably making $120,000, $180,000 a year, running an inventory far less and getting it logistically moved throughout the country.
Trunnis, is there not anybody there when you're preparing to go back out into that civilian life that prepares these guys for all of this?
There is, but they spend. For example, my job, I was a legalman. I was a recruiter in the United States Navy. Okay, so I was a legal yeoman, and then I was a recruiter in the United States Navy. During that time, they took about 2 years to train me to do my job. They gave me 2 weeks to train me to be a civilian again. That's it. So what they're doing is they're not spending enough time in the training to get you out. They say, we have 2 weeks to get you all ready to go out into the civilian world, and that's all we've got. And every branch has it. I know that back when I was in it, it's called TAPS class. And that's the class that they do when they change you back over to a civilian. Okay? They need to make sure that those classes are done different. They need to sit there and say, hey, you know what? At 1 year, if you're on a 4-year contract or a 6-year contract, they need to have somebody come up to you about a year out before you get out. Hey, what are you planning on doing? Do you plan on re-enlisting? Do you plan on getting out into the civilian world? Do you plan on living? I know you live right now in Fayetteville, North Carolina, because you're at Fort Bragg, okay? Which I could say that again, all right? Or, that's what it's called again, right? They renamed
I saw that.
Yeah. So,
I'm waiting for him to do it with Benning.
It's coming, all right?
Good.
But what they do is they should say, are you going to stay in Fayetteville? If you're going to stay in Fayetteville, then Maybe we should start doing a networking. Maybe we should sit there and tell you about your job. Maybe we should sit there and talk to you about how to change your resume and get your resume done right. Maybe we should get you out there so you are now trained. I'm going to tell you, if they did that, your suicide rate's going to go down. Your depression is going to go down. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care how prepared you are to leave the military. I'm going to tell any vet out there, and I'm going to tell you the vets are going to understand, and your active duty people that are listening, when you leave, I was extremely prepared. I walked out of the United States Navy with my master's degree and a job. And when I got out, I was still depressed. All right. So there is going to be a level of adjustment, and there is going to be, but I'm going to tell you the transition will be a lot smoother if you are already prepared to make that move.
So, I mean, I've seen the stats anywhere from like 45 to 55 veterans daily committing suicide. That is alarming to me. And I think for people that have probably never heard what we're talking about, first thing they would think of is just PTSD. But I mean, from what I can hear, and a lot of these guys I've talked to, it sounds like that meaning of life, not being prepared, the civilian life, and all of that, that experience that they're having must be playing into that. How much of that do you think is just that loss of meaning versus like issues like PTSD?
The loss of meaning is really effective. It really does affect a military member. I think PTSD obviously is very difficult. All right, it does lead to suicide, but I think loss of meaning, I'm not going to put a balance on it, like more so than one. But I will say that is a reason why there are suicide rates. I think that what needs to be done at the VA and at other things, I really do think that the issue of mental health, the issue of when you go from one base or one duty station to the next, there's always a mentor that guides you out. If we had a stronger mentor system where you have members that are volunteers that go out and help mentor individuals as they're becoming a civilian. I know when I was out in Bartholomew County, I had the esteemed privilege. It was my greatest thing to do. I actually was a mentor for the Bartholomew County, Indiana Veterans Court. And these are individuals. Veterans Court is where you have a veteran who gets in trouble. It may be their first time getting in trouble of some magnitude. It could be a drinking or drug charge or something like that, but they're a veteran. And what the Veterans Court does is it gives this opportunity to that offender or to that the veteran to get their, they have to go through a class, and they have to go through a certain process, and it will get there. Sometimes the process lasts about 18 months. Usually it's about 18 months, but over that 18-month period, you will be able to you'll be able to get your record expunged, and they drop the charges and you're fine through different types of, maybe drug rehab or something like that. And so I think that what they should do, instead of having the mentor after you got in trouble, they should have a mentor the day you get out. I'm going to tell you, even with working with this project, with the book, there are definitely a ton of people out there right now that would be more than happy to go out there and help these individuals get what they need and mentor them through life. I mean, it doesn't matter where they are. I mean, veterans are everywhere. We're everywhere. We're in every city. We're in every state. We are definitely here to help. And I know that there are a lot of them, even if it's just a phone call and just to walk you through the process. I think that'll be great. And that would also reduce the suicide rate and even the alcoholism and drug abuse rates among the veteran community.
Looking at this, from this perspective, going back, my stepson is about to go into the Army. My daughter's boyfriend just took off last month. He joined the Marines. What is something you can tell to these guys that are going into the military? Maybe some of that stuff early on that they can do to prepare, even though it could be 4 or 20 years from now before they get out and go back to that civilian life? What are some things that you could tell them ahead of time while they're in the middle of that process that could help out?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you asked that. My son Nicholas has joined the United States Navy. He's joined the Navy, so he's following in the footsteps of his dad, I should say. But he's actually going to go and follow in the footsteps of his uncle, and he's striving to become a Navy SEAL. He wants to be a Navy SEAL, and I'm very proud of him for doing that. One thing that I do with my son is at least once a week, I talk to him about, number one, how proud I am of him to join the United States military and serve and protect the greatest country that has ever been placed on this earth. Okay. So that's one thing I'm very proud. I'm very proud of that. The next thing I talk to him about is this. I talk to him about the process. I talk to him about the process of joining, the process of the camaraderie and all this other stuff. I also talk to him, hey, you know what? My son saw me as a little, when he was what, 5? I think he was 5. He saw me go through the process of becoming a civilian again. And I always give him warning signs. This day is coming. Okay. And so I always talk to him about this day is coming. A lot of times, and military recruiters, I was a recruiter myself, we never tell them about the day that's coming. We talk to them about, hey, you get out, you're going to get a pension, which is true. Okay. But we don't talk to them about all the other things that happen afterwards. And so what I would say is for your and thank your family members for their service. They're doing great things, but they need to find somebody that can kind of be there and be that voice of reason and be that guide throughout their process, not only when they are in, but when they get out. And they need to be warned. This is what happens when you get out. You need to have these things, and you need to tell them it is going to happen to you. Okay. It is going to happen to you. You're not going to be in there your whole life. There's like, especially the kids that they join when they're 18 and then they get out when they're 38. That's all they've known. And now they have to come out into this world here, and you need to start telling them what this world here is all about.
There you go. It's a very important conversation that and subject that you're talking about here. And what was it that inspired you to write about this at this particular point in time? Was it something in particular that made you say, you know what, I need to get this out here?
I was teaching a class of veterans, and in teaching this class of veterans, this was about a year ago. In teaching this class of veterans, I was listening to the way they were talking. And I was like, guys, you guys have a false sense. It's not, I mean, it's great. I love my life right now. Okay. And at 54, I couldn't join again, but I will say this, I miss those days of being in the military, but I love my life so much now that I wouldn't join again. It's over. But I do want to tell them that transition is very difficult. And that's why I came out with the book again. And the other thing is just watching the statistics. And what really hurts me is I live here in Asheville, North Carolina, and I walk down the street and the number of times I see homeless vets. And if they had this book, if they had somebody who told them and gave them warning or maybe mentored them, they wouldn't be on this road that they're on right now.
Obviously, I mean, everybody's different, so you can't just put your finger on it and say, hey, this was the cause. But when you see those homeless vets, is there, how do you think so many of them are ending up there?
Drug and alcoholism is number one.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's one of the cases. The other case is that they did not have a true sense of they didn't get that true, reality of what was going to happen when they got out. And I think they got overwhelmed. It stunned them. And what you thought was going to happen on the other end wasn't going to happen. And again, I think that it's even recruiters. When I was a recruiter, I used to tell people, hey, when you get out, you can do this, that, and the other. I didn't tell them, hey, when you get out, there's a good chance that you're going to have to work at Walmart as a Walmart greeter and to make ends meet, because you're only getting 75% of your pension and the cost of living is going to go up. I didn't tell them that. And that does happen. And I think that when that does set in, I really do think, the depression hits. And anybody who has a job, you look at athletes, you look at these great athletes who, when they get out, they end up going through depression and a sense of loss and things like that. It's because that no one told them at the other end that the game's going to be over soon. And that's the same thing with military. I mean, you have a true purpose. You are a true hero. And then you get out and no one knows who you are. And it's a bad sense.
It's crazy, man. I could see how that would be. Definitely got to be a struggle. When is the book coming out, Trunnis?
The book is already out.
It's already out.
Yes, you can get it on, and I get it on screen. You can get this book on Amazon. You can get it Barnes and Noble. We do work with military non-for-profits. I know we're working with one. We're having an event in April 8th of this year. And we are actually working with them. And some proceeds from the book does go to military programs or veteran programs to help veterans through this transition.
That is awesome, man. Where can everybody go to get it?
You can get it, like I said, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it Barnes and Noble. You can get it online. You can get either the book itself, or you can get it on you can get it on Nook, or you can get it on Kindle.
And it's awesome, man. I'm definitely going to be getting a copy. I'm just curious when I was seeing the picture of that cover. I love it. What's the meaning behind the boots with the flag?
The boots, we have, her name is Nicole Perici. She does all of the cover art of my books.
Okay.
And that is, I mean, when she designed that cover, I thought it was just fantastic. There, you know, and again, I think that is symbolic of the veterans. Especially
powerful picture, man.
It is a very powerful picture.
I've used it before. That's what I was asking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, man. Where can everybody go to keep up with you and everything else that you've going on? I know you got a podcast yourself. You do conferences and stuff as well. Where can everybody connect with you?
You can get me at the 4 Ps of You podcast. Now, my podcast is not as interesting. You are a much better host than I am. I will say that, Eric. You are a hell of a much better host than I am. But you can go to the 4 Ps podcast. It's a 4 Ps podcast with Trunnis Goggins II. And you can go ahead and pull that up. It's on it's on Spotify, Amazon. It's on all of your platforms. We are also, you can get the 4psofyou.com. You can reach me there. And like I said, and you can also reach me on Instagram, Facebook, all those other things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, brother, always a good time to talk to you, and we'll have to have you back on sometime soon.
Roger that. Thank you very much.
See you, man.